What's up, guys? Today we have a very special topic and a very special guest on the show. This is a topic that not a lot of people talk about, especially for men, and a lot of shame is associated around this topic. So I wanted to bring on my guest, Alexandra Holovitz, all the way from Hungary, who is a hypnosomatic coach. She teaches sacred sexuality, she teaches orgasm and pleasure. And she's been doing it for years on end. So we're going to get really into this. We're going to address everything from that sexual shame to the power of using your sexual energy and channeling it into your real world and using it for different things, whether it's performance, whether it's intimacy with your partner. I'm excited for this one. With that, I'm your host, Gore, and let's get into the Becoming podcast. Thank you, Alexandra, for coming on the show.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So let's start with kind of the general background of like what drew you into this field and how you got started going down this path. I know you mentioned hypnosis and you mentioned Tantra. What was really like the origin of your story in this field?
My background is totally different. I'm originally an economist and I was very much into the masculine corporate mindset. And I just felt like when I was 30 that there has to be more to life. It cannot be only this going to work, hustling, making money, and, kind of just living for the holidays and stuff. And then
Yeah.
I was 32. I decided to quit my corporate job in London and travel the world. And then that drew me into actually finding all these crazy tantric people in Bali. And then I made it my mission to learn more about my own self because I actually realized that how much I did not know about sexuality, my own intimacy, my own self actually, and how much I thought back then that I am super open minded, but then
Yeah.
it's how much still to explore. And also in my travels, I met a guy who was a business coach, and we had this conversation like, when you go into business, they always encourage you to find a niche, do something. And we had this conversation, and he was asking me half jokingly, so what are you good at? And I was like, sex and sports. So he was like,
Ah,
there you go. It's a really bit of a fun aspect, but really that drew me into like, I always felt like I can just talk about, read about, write about sex. Like it's for me, like really breathing, like
yeah.
I love this. And even in my human design, it's the moon is basically in sexuality. So
Yeah.
it's like something that a driving force. And as we talked about it also, that our own driving force, right? Like the life force is about sexuality, creativity. So I
Yeah.
really felt driven into through my own experience that to begin to meet these tantric people and going into it and just exploring like how much my body is capable, like holding pleasure and even sometimes transforming my own shame or pain into something different. So it was really like 6 months self exploration, discovery, what feels good, what not. And then after, when I went back to London, I went to Psychosexuality Academy and then I learned and then I went deeper into, so it's been 7 years now or maybe even 8. It's a long time, but I always think that it's if you want to get a good personal education and transformation, the sexuality is the fastest way to really go for
Mhm.
it. Like you will receive all of the blocks, all of the shame, all of the things that you might inherited from your parents and your society culture or things, like really somewhere I always say to my clients as well that it's the playground and it's somewhere where you cannot hide anymore. It's just right there in front of your
Yeah.
face, right? So
Yeah. So where would someone start in on that journey of like you said start at your sexuality and your sexual energy to go into a self transformation,
Mm.
what does that exactly look like in terms of the basics, like where someone would start and what that process would be like?
Yeah. So I would start first, like just to connecting with your own learned sexual behaviors actually before
Hmm.
going into sexual energy and tantra and all that. Because my concept also that many people want to learn tantra, but you cannot learn tantra if you have a lot of blocks or a lot of shame and fear and guilt and all this negative vibration into your
Hmm.
body. So
Hmm.
I would definitely start somewhere like really just even just a little bit of a mindset or like a shadow work kind of aspect of what is your general idea about sexuality? How did you learn masturbation? What drawn into you? What concepts you inherited from your mother, from your father, from your culture? If you are religious, what stories you heard about sex and when you quote yourself. So I would definitely start there to really
Hmm.
unpack all of that first and then move into like breath work, like really conscious breath work. Breath work is amazing because it really helps you to calm down, connect deeper. So if, for example, I work a lot with high achieving men and women, and they often have like very controlled job, very high responsibility, always mentalizing, always thinking logically, right? But when you want to do something sexual for your pleasure, not for your performance, you really become to have to connect with your body, right?
Right.
So that is for me, like always was like the very, very beginning as well. Like I love going back to breath work and even just like very simple breath work through the nose, like 5 rhythm, out through the mouth, 5 rhythm, and just go for a couple of minutes and just really feel like how different you already feel from that small thing. And then even when people are together or doing self pleasure, they often start like hyperventilating, right? Like taking the
Right.
breath like more shallow, more quick, like, oh my God, something happening, right?
Right.
And that's really the worst thing that you can do. So
Yeah.
even if you just listen in this podcast and the one thing you take away is just to calm down, slow down, and just really connect with your conscious breath. So taking 5 in, 5 out, and really just focusing on the air, like how does it feel? What's happening in your body? If you have any thoughts around it, maybe your monkey mind will tell you like, come on, we need to do the self pleasure now, or
Yeah.
come on, we
That's every guy.
there's all that story. So that's
Yeah.
again giving us back into like what is the limitation? Like where are you rushing? And
Yeah.
as we are talking about men also have this performance base, right? Like they
Yeah.
think that a self pleasure or a sexual encounter is only as good as much orgasm you have or your partner have or whatever things happening. So for my advice also is to be like instead of focusing so much on performing and doing, just stop for a while, take 5 breaths, ask yourself, how are you feeling? What is happening right now?
Hmm.
And maybe you feel pushed. Maybe you feel like, there is a fear like, oh my God, I don't know. And sometimes also for men, like really to be like the deep intimacy, the fear, that's why they also rush through the whole thing or they really want to chase this kind of like, okay, now we are doing it for the sake of orgasm or like a peak experience.
Hmm.
Then is it really that's why we do it? Or is it
Yeah.
because you want to connect and want to feel intimate with your partner, right? So I think that's always very much important to check in. Like, what is your
Right.
intention? Like,
Mm.
why are you doing it? And how do
Yeah.
you feel?
I think men think that way because it's some sort of a result or an outcome
Yeah.
that happens from the act itself. And that's how men measure like if they're good or bad, right? As opposed to was I able to connect with no specific outcome.
Yeah.
And for women, women want the connection aspect more so than the orgasm, I would even argue, because it's more about the emotional safety than it is about like just having a high for a few seconds, you know? The orgasm adds to that, but but the main thing is the connection. It just makes it even a stronger connection that way.
Yes. And I
So,
also think
yeah.
for women that it's very important to feel like safe, right? So the emotion, I think that the women always look for the emotional stability, the safety, so then they can open up more sexually when they feel more safe, when they
Mhm.
feel that they are seen, when they feel like they are supported, even whatever happening in that scenario. So it's not
Yeah.
pushed rather than like, I see you, I feel you, I receive you kind of vibe, then it's a whole different level because then a woman can really open up. I
Uh-huh.
always have this fun conversation with my students that I train that they say, yeah, but most men think that men, they are more sexual. And I'm like, I have to disagree with that. I
Yeah,
think
women.
woman is really like opened up and, seen. Woman can be more sexual, I do believe.
Yeah, that makes me think of the sense of control or restraint, or I guess channeling of that energy. Women are so much more stable, I would say, in their sexual energy, whereas as opposed to men are just about having this urge to go out there and put themselves out there, which I guess is the masculine urge. Whereas like femininity is to receive, so it's a softer energy. But I'm curious about your perspective on the two energies. And I don't want to say control so much, but in terms of managing those energies, because especially growing up, nobody teaches you how to manage that energy, right? And so you just lead according to impulse as opposed to understanding and awareness. So I'm curious how that is different for men and women, and if you have thoughts on how to manage it, basically. Does that make
Okay,
sense?
so to get the question is about
Uh,
like what is the difference between the masculine and the feminine expression of self
yeah,
energy?
yeah, the expression of sexual energy, and then also how to, or what practices to have to practice not being overtaken by that energy or following the impulse of that energy and using it as a superpower as opposed to being affected by it.
Yeah. So I again have to agree to disagree, but like
Yeah.
sometimes I think it's not really like a man or woman kind of thing. It's just like the way that how sexual energy works. So
Uh-huh,
if you are tapped into your own energy, in the
uh-huh,
beginning, it's very overwhelming. Does not matter your gender because
uh-huh.
you've been so disconnected from it. So we are
Yeah,
so in the mind and we are always trying to control the outcome and we organizing and having this all the long
right.
do list and things like that. So when it's something so pure and so much like it really can be overwhelming. So I think it's for both, like for man and woman as well. It can
Uh-huh,
feel like overwhelming. And
uh-huh,
that's why I think that is very important to go through the right setup and to
uh-huh,
choose the right teacher also
mm,
and someone that you kind of want to be like or that you feel safe and you feel like keeping the boundaries into the professional aspect. I think that's also usually very important. But I would say that usually starting with purifications, again, like doing some kind of body work and some kind of de-armoring. De-armoring is about like blockages in the body that you remove this armor basically that in the body that holding different energetic and emotional prints and then
mm,
you can remove it. So the first is always purification because we want to be like the most authentic self expression of that energy, right? And then so we always purify a bit and there is different rituals and practices for that. And then once you purify, you start to be like awakening it, like, okay, there is happening. Now I feel more tingle, or now I feel that, okay, the energy actually moving. So different people feel different things again. It's not like, oh, it has to look like this or all that sometimes I think also that when you look at the YouTube channels and all these people having this crazy Kundalini awakening, so people can have this crazy idea that it has to look like this, but
Yeah.
it's not. So like it can be a very subtle, however, like very fulfilling experience, right? So I would say that it's always just important again to check in that why is it, like, is it out of performance? Like, I really want it to happen and now I have this big Kundalini awakening. Or it's really truly happening from your sacral and when I believe that it's truly happening through the sacral up to the heart and then to the crown, you will really feel that everything is connected. So it's almost like an alignment within you, so your whole body will be like energized, more vital. You will feel more positive and happy. So it doesn't have to necessarily look like this crazy, awakening, shaking or whatever experience. It can, but it doesn't have to. So it can be, some of my clients, they have like tingling or like energy bursts or like warm and cold or sweatiness or and any kind of thing. So the
Yeah.
second stage is always to awaken that energy, that alive, and I would say that even your erotic essence, right? Like what is your erotic essence wanting to express? And then the third stage will be to learning how to circulate it, how to transmute it. And this is when we can start working on, like, okay, I want to use it maybe to manifest a partner, or I want to use it towards like having more focus in my business, or I want to use it to have a better health, or whatever you want to use it. And there is an option as well, like to learning, like, okay, I have all this sexual energy now, how I transmute it into whatever physical thing I want to use.
Mhm.
There is some books as well, like the Mantak Chia books for multi-orgasmic man and woman, or the Tao books. They're really great. So
Yeah.
there is many options that you can learn. I always think that it's great to learn and read and listen to this podcast and everything. But the best way is once you gather the information, because information is only information,
Right.
right? You have to apply it, right? Like for me, that is always like, okay, is it just information or is it just like applied knowledge? So when you start to apply that, that is become like an embodied, confident expression. And I think this is when you can see people like, usually tantric teachers can maybe 10, 20 years younger and they really radiant. And then
Uh,
they just have all this beautiful glow and vibe because of that really strong sexual energy that
right.
is nurturing basically inside them.
Right.
Yeah.
That's so powerful. So what I took from that is first building a sense of awareness of where that stuck energy is coming from and how to bring it back to alignment, and then understanding you said erotic essence.
Mhm.
Can you explain what that means in terms of like details?
Yeah, so for example, like you can be like someone that very sexual, can be someone very sensual, you can be someone who loves kinky stuff, you can be
Yeah.
like mixed persons. I would say like what really turns you on,
Uh,
because we have all this conditioning of like coming from the religion or something that
right.
sex is something a sinful thing, and
Uh,
but to really check in with yourself, or when you are younger, you learn sex through your friends or porn or magazines or whatever outlet. But that's again, it's like a distortion of like what's sex. And then sometimes also I feel that when you go into these big communities of tantric people, that can be also very like overwhelming, and then can be also like, okay, then sex is only like this, when we eye gaze, we breathe together, and it's like everything just match and the universe. And so that can be also, I think, sometimes too much. So just to
right.
check in, like, so okay, this is the outlet. It's almost like having the plug as your erotic essence, right? Like,
Yeah.
and then okay, I just sample a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of that. And then I will have this kind of like, okay, I like this. I want to keep this. I taking this. So I really believe, because also, for example, with the kinkiness or stuff like that as well, like we have a lot of conditioning around, like, my God, only crazy people, or, only people who have very severe trauma going to BDSM or whatever.
Hmm.
Again, it's just a condition, it's a belief, and
Right.
it might not be true, right? So I think just to take everything like as you have to try everything, that's my rule, like at least once, in order to say, okay, I like it or I don't like it. And then
Right.
you can be seeing like when you are really fired up and something really comes to you naturally and turns you on, and you feel like, like, wow, I'm just so like turned on,
Mhm.
then it's possibly your natural way of erotism.
And then beyond that is the transmutation. Once you understand yourself, it's then to share that with the world, to put out into the world and transmute that energy. And this is something that I'm completely fascinated by, because I've always known and understood and felt that sexual energy can be so powerful, so life changing.
Mm,
But there's so little information about how to use it, what to believe about it. And so people just hear that this is wrong, and it's a
mm,
very like black and white thinking. So I'm also curious about that third step of transmuting that energy. What does that even mean? When, because I'm sure you've read Napoleon Hill, I believe it was the last chapter about sexual
yeah.
transmutation, and he said it, if nothing else, this is the most powerful takeaway you can have from this book, is that transmutation of sexual energy, to nurture it within you and channel it into your life, whether it shows in your skin or whether it shows in your performance. It's very prominent and very obvious. So, what is sexual transmutation? What does it look like? And how do you go about transmuting that sexual energy?
Yeah. So, for example, if you want to use it to manifesting something, that's called like sex magic. And
Right.
then you do the same like purification, breathing, connecting deeper with the body, and do the conscious or tantric self pleasure. It's not necessary to touch. If you want to touch, you can. But for example, with the tantric touch or the tantric masturbation, is you can just really activate this energy within you with the breath, and then the thoughts, and then the movement of the way, and then the sound. So these are the things, and then you begin to feel the energy basically, and you can touch
Mhm.
yourself, of course, but not necessary to touch in a way like you would normally touch in a sexual way. However, again, tantra is all about liberation, or at least for me, and
Yeah.
then it's really about like whatever feels right in that moment. So
Mhm.
again, there is no like this is the way, like, or I like to teach it like this, because I don't believe this ultimate truth like this is the way kind of thing.
Mhm.
So once you find like, okay, you start to feel this energy, the energy will start to circulate, or you start to feel warm or tingle, or like really feeling like this expansion, I would say. Then you can decide that, okay, I'm ready to transmute. Transmutation only means like to channel it, or to change the energy into something in the physical realm, right? So
Right.
it means that basically, like, if you want to manifest a partner, or if you want to do it for your work or something, in the moment of when you are the highest orgasmic energy, you will start thinking of that. So you have the intention, and then you will say, okay, when I'm now coming, I'm calling in from the universe, like I want to manifest my soulmate, and I know that whatever. And then basically that you will have the orgasm, and through that orgasmic energy, like it's kind of like the connection with God or universe or whatever you believe, and then you start feeling it, like it will manifest basically. It's a bit like an abstract, so I think it's
Yeah.
works better. But so basically, using your own life force into, if you would say it like this, like to plug it in into the divine, or to the whatever you believe,
Right.
right? So things can manifest faster, basically.
And that starts with your breath, breathing into your core and
Yeah.
just
The
like,
breath is basically like the way I like to teach it is like the breath is the bridge between the mind and the body, right? Because
uh,
we are always up in the mind and nothing can happen until that you are up here because you
uh,
will be always disconnected. So when you start to come down from here, you start maybe opening your heart if you are a female. So generally sexual energy in females more into the heart, like opening up there because they are more emotional, more connected, and so on. And for men, is more go to the sacral, so opening up the sexual energy. And
uh,
then when you start to the connection, so it's always worth to connect both three. So like the sacral, the heart, and then the head. So you
uh,
will feel like this completion. So it's not like because you can see some people, right? Like they're very sexual, but they are very maybe primal or very much like in the physical dimension
right,
of the sex, right?
right,
So they master that aspect, but that's not like having the sexual energy going through you. It's the
uh,
physical aspect. And
right.
then some people, for example, if you are too much in the tantric realm and stuff, I also, when I was doing the 5 months, just having self pleasure, connecting with people, and really, I was very much like in the five dimension, but nothing physical could. I was like, oh my God, just look at me, and I could have an orgasm. But it was all like this energetic aspect, right? Like there
Uh,
was no almost no physical aspect of it. And then there was this time when I started to connect the dots, and then also there was the time when I was doing the just the mind one with the hypnosis. So I think that's why when I said also now that for after 7 years now I done all the aspect like separate, and then I could see okay, the best is really to connect the mind, the heart, and then your genitals, so then it can really flow into like all aspect of you. And
uh,
I do believe that's like the ultimate sexual energy when you can really feel it in your mind, feel it in the heart, and feel it in the genital, and then you can give it to someone like, you know. And there is the transmutation can happen by yourself and then plug it into the universe or whatever you believe, or it can happen between partners as well, like you are doing it and then you just circulate it between you, and then same in the moment of like orgasm, then you are plug it in. So it can happen both ways.
so to put it into, say, like practical steps for someone who's not very familiar with the field of Tantra and the practice, how I imagine it from everything you're saying is you breathe in, you calm your body, you tune into your senses, you breathe into your sacral energy, and you open that energy up. And as you feel that energy flowing, you set an intention and you focus on that intention as you continue letting that energy flow and channel up.
Huh?
Is that accurate?
Yes, in the small aspect,
My
yes.
basic understanding, yeah. What
Yes,
would be the
mean, like that's why you would need someone that they can really teach you, right? Because
right?
it's something that you can just start doing it because you won't know what you're doing, right? Like
Yeah,
you never experience it. So
right.
it's the things that you need to focus is the breath. The breath is the connection between the mind and the body. The sound, because many people don't give any kind of sound, right? So, like to really have the sound is bringing the vibration higher, so the
Mhm.
body can start to vibrate higher. So, imagine also maybe you go sometimes to drums or like like gong bath or something, and different sound causing different frequency for people's body, right? So exactly the same. If I would start moaning in different kind of waves, maybe you will sit there and you feel very excited, and maybe some people would be very turned off because
Uh-huh.
for them that sound. So you have to again find your own frequency, or if you do it with a partner, like actually you can do it that in a way that the moaning and that stuff, it's it's just causing this sexual turn on. And
Mhm.
then move the body. So usually we do like circular motions, moving, opening the hips. The hips has a lot of sexual trauma as well. And that's why I said that when I work with someone, I always go like first finding out their sexual stories, behaviors, what happened with them in the past, and then go into like opening up their body. Because
Uh,
without that, to do actually a body work, like to seeing like where do you hold tension, trauma, or blockage in your body, that
mhm.
won't be able to feel this tantric energy. And I
Right.
think that's why sometimes I don't agree with this neo-tantric way of learning tantra because, they advertise, "Oh, come 2 days and then you will be feeling all
Yeah.
this amazing orgasmic energy." No, you probably won't feel it because you can't feel it because there is so much stuff, onto the body first that you need to remove. And once you remove it, then the energy can flow, right? It's almost like, like, I don't know, like a clog something, right? Like first we need to remove the clog and then it can flow through the
Right.
water, right? So I
Exactly.
think that's very important. So anybody starting out, like you can go on YouTube. I also have like a channel where I did couple things on mindful masturbation, and then also on how to start with solo tantra, and also there is one with the energy orgasm. So there's many things that you can see and try. And then also if you're serious about like learning how to really connect with your erotic essence, I think that is something that you can do with a private mentor if it's me or
Right.
someone that you like. I think it's
Mhm.
really worth to, go there and invest, because I often feel that as well, that once you work on the sexuality, there is many aspects of your life will change.
Right.
Like even without, because it can be so the core, right? Like
Right.
this kind of life force you become more energetic, you become radiant,
Right.
more like traction, and even
Present.
without noticing, maybe you get more opportunity, more invite, or more stuff coming to you. So many things will happen to you, even though, and I agree that it's still sometimes people think, "Oh, I don't want to invest, or I don't want to go, I feel shame, or I feel like it's a waste." But actually, like, I think this is really one of the fastest way to learn a lot
Mm.
about yourself in a quick way.
Yeah, the people who are hesitating for some reason are have an even stronger reason to look into it and invest into it and learn it, because that very reason that they're not doing it is the reason they should, oftentimes,
Exactly.
because that's the thing holding them back.
There is
Now,
this thing, right? Like anything you resist is persist.
right, exactly. We talked a lot on the liberation of sexual energy. I want to touch on something that's very prominent in society and affects people, I would say, negatively. I don't see any positive side to it. But what are your thoughts on what part porn plays into people's lives, and this transformation, how it affects this transformation for anybody that uses porn, or just the effects of porn in general?
Yeah. So again, I think there is no right or wrong way to do it and to watch it. I think it's something that you have to decide. I think porn becomes addictive or negative when it's affecting your normal sex life, right?
Right,
Meaning that if you are obsessed with that quick, change, and then using it like for instant
right,
gratification, then you have this big expectation that everybody look like a porn star, because let's be honest, nobody look like a porn star. They
yeah,
really like have a lot of plastic surgery and a lot of stuff and the camera angles and all that stuff.
yeah,
So all that is just a big illusion mask. So once you clear on that, okay, this is something that I will maybe go, and then you will, play with it. I think always that the playing part, so not to get obsessed with it, or it's not to become like an addiction. Because
uh-huh,
what happens often, I used to work with men a lot on like premature ejaculation or erectile dysfunction, right? And then it happens because of porn, but not
Yeah.
because of the porn, but because of the bad behavior they are doing with the porn, right? So
Yeah.
like this instant gratification and then just really getting off for very fast and things. And that's leaving their penis like in a very bad shape. So that again, when you go to a tantric person and you receiving the armoring for it, like there is cock de-armoring, and then you basically like begin to learn how to touch your penis in the right way. I have also one video about this, and this is very controversial topic.
Right.
Like, what do you mean, like the right way to touch my cock? Like, yeah, you
I love it.
there is a right way to do it. And then so basically also that in terms that to really like lengthen it and strengthen it instead of like pushing it together and things like that. So yeah, there is many ways. I do believe that these days also there is an expansion into conscious porn, and then people they doing porn in a way that it feels good and it's more on consent. And that's also I think very important to bring in, that to be in this aspect of consent. So not to be in this like, like you saw it on porn and you think that's the reality, and then you become to implement it in the bedroom. And when your partner is not reacting as a porn star, then it's become like a whole big deal.
Mm.
So again, it's just okay. I think porn is not right or wrong, but like the setup, the behavior, and then if you think that's reality, it's the wrong aspect of it. And
Right.
I usually encourage people to watch porn, but like in a conscious way, like to communicate about it. Like, okay, this desire brought up this. Like, do you want to try it? Or like,
Mhm.
we watched it together. It was really arousing because blah, blah, blah. Or no, I watched it and I would never want to try this. So I think porn can give you like this aspect of fantasy, and then to be like, okay, able to communicate around it. So in that, if you use it consciously, I think that's a good tool as
Mhm.
well, and just not abuse it, right? So
Right.
not to be like over consuming and being in this like roller coaster of thinking that's reality, because it's
Mhm.
not.
So for the people who uh, go down this path of like associating and reinforcing negative behavior as it relates to porn, and they get to a point where it's like their automatic response to, for example, stress or novelty, anytime they're missing something, whether it's in a relationship or from life or just feeling overwhelmed, which are all common emotions for high performers, especially. Um, how would you, and I'm sure you've had clients that have dealt with this, but how do you guide them to come back from that? I mean, obviously, working on the deeper issue of the shame associated and where it comes from is a big
I
part of it.
I think the avoidance, right? Like
Yeah.
sometimes not even the shame, I think, because they don't really feel so shame. My
Mm.
experience, they would feel guilt
Oh, okay.
because they've been caught, maybe,
Mhm.
or they hide it with the partner. So the guilt is more, and then the avoidance that, for example, like she will not be like this. So
Mhm.
why to bother when I have this quick fix to do
Mhm.
it? Or like I don't have to be nice to the
Mhm.
screen or whatever. So it's more on also that sometimes it's a tool also to avoid intimacy or avoid connection and
Mhm.
avoid, depth. I
Mhm.
think that is something that, for example, if someone is working a lot and in high pressure, that they feel that it's too much pressure as well,
Mhm.
like to put on all that other layer, and then maybe that's a quick escape.
Escape.
Yeah. So I think that's it's always I think that it's good to like the why I'm doing what I'm doing kind of
Mhm.
ways, almost like being your own little detective, to asking yourself like, am I doing it for pleasure, which
Mhm.
is fine. Like I honestly do think that it's nothing wrong with doing it in moderation, or
Mhm.
when it's like, yeah, okay, I it's the same, right? Like if you drink, it's
Right.
okay one drink or two drinks per week or whatever, but don't drink every single day. Don't drink 1 liter. Don't drink, right? So
Right.
it's the same that it's like it's okay to do it with moderation. And when you feel that I really want to taste this or I really want to try this or wow, it feels amazing for me until the edge, but don't overdo it because then it becomes this whole thing. Yeah.
Do you find that once this habit is established where they just like escape on the smallest sign of overwhelm or inconvenience or stress if they're working too hard, do you find that they're able to create some sort of blockage between them and access to the porn? Because, for example, with alcohol, you can just not keep it in the house. You can make it really difficult for you to go and get it and really inconvenient. And that adds a sort of barrier. But when thing like porn is a click away
Mhm.
and the high performers are like just always uh, there in their own environment, having that easy of a barrier, how does one overcome or create distance between those two?
Yes, this is when you can actually do like hypnosis. That
Uh,
would be a great aspect to do, like to finding the root cause and then to see if this really causing you any issue.
uh-huh,
And then if it does, then to go into like what are you trying to avoid it, right?
uh-huh,
Like with this behavior. And then oftentimes that once we do like hypnosis, that they really find that, okay, I was neglected by my mother and I was never listened or I was like this or that or whatever. And then they become this new and then we can reprogram it into like shifting their identity into like, okay, I'm no porn watcher or something. But they
uh-huh,
have to also, for example, I always feel that, if someone has an addiction and porn can be an addiction as well, like you
uh-huh.
can't change them unless they really want to change.
Right.
So that's a
Right.
very important thing as well. Like I always say, like, okay, you watch porn, you consume porn or whatever, but does it affect your work? Does it affect your relationship? Does it
Um,
affect your health? Because if these things they are not endangered, they might not want to change it
right.
really.
Right.
So you have to see it in an aspect like, is it something that really bothers you, or is it
Yeah.
something that affecting, like maybe you not any longer getting hard in the normal sexual encounter, you don't want to have a sexual encounter with your partner anymore because it's just too boring for you or too whatever because it
Uh,
cannot change like the channel, right?
right.
So that is the real question, I think. So it's always like, I think, just to go more the mindfulness aspect, like
Mm,
to really asking yourself a lot of questions like, what is the intention behind? Because it's no right or wrong thing to do, but like, why do you do it? And then
right.
if you
Right.
feel that you do it just for pleasure or right now you need, stress release, but most of the days you're right, I think it's nothing to shame on, right? Like
Uh-huh.
it's okay. It's
Uh-huh.
exactly the same when I teach people with semen retention with the tantric aspect. So there is some teachers, they really like strict, like, okay, you go on the semen retention and now it's like you never, never come or never ejaculate or whatever. But I also believe that, for example, that if it's causing you a lot of restriction, a lot of hustle, and a lot of like more on the constructive, like to make your body like like this,
Mhm.
then it's again is not helpful, right? Like it's
Uh-huh.
maybe better to release and then to see, okay, what was the pattern behind it, why I couldn't do it or why I wanted to, and then again, then you will be feeling like, okay, now it's the time to maybe, prolong it for 2 days longer or whatever. So exactly with the porn as well, like if someone wants to change their behaviors, they're serious about it, I would still think that take hypnotherapy for it and then almost go on like a porn diet kind of thing, like when you feel like maybe if you done every day, then do it once a week and then you will see that okay,
Uh,
how it's changing, and also writing about it, like why do you do it, what causing you, how do you feel before, after, and as you say, maybe there is some shame or guilt or any other feelings coming up before or after, then it's also worth to look at, to to see, okay, why I'm really doing it or what I'm trying to escape from.
Yeah. That awareness is such a huge concept for all aspects of life, not just overcoming anything related to porn or sexuality even. It's just but the thing is, like, people aren't willing to face themselves to gain that awareness until they hit a point of pain that forces them to face themselves and their back is against the wall. So I think that's a huge takeaway in regards to where any sort of behavioral issues might come from. It is like the awareness behind what's causing it and what's making you react a certain way. I feel that once you gain a certain level of awareness, there's a lot more of a sense of control around these emotions. Like you said, on the sexual side, whenever you're feeling stuck and you're just into the physical energy side of it and not tuned into your body and your senses, there's this like tension associated with it where you're not really flowing with that energy. It's just like physical presence.
Also, I think that until you never try, you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
Because, as I said as well, for me also until 32, I was pretty sure like I'm all right. I figured it out. Everything great. Yeah, I can have orgasms. There's no problem. Then when I received the tantric, and then I started to see, and then now I received also like the hands-free orgasm for the hypnosis, and then I was like, oh my god, like there is so much more. So I
Yeah.
think that it's to have this yes, the awareness, but also like your own curiosity. Maybe that's the good thing to take away, as like to like what's more there. Or am I living? Like I always like to see, I'm a human design projector, so I see people's potential before they even believe themselves or see their sexual potential or whatever potential. But like, is what are you really living your full potential in the
Mm.
sexual realm? And if
Uh,
the answer is maybe or not, then maybe it's something to look into, because I do believe that once that is correct, then all of
yeah.
the other things will fall into, even better aspect.
Yeah. I would highly urge anyone to explore their sexual energy because it's a life hack. So it's our most powerful energy, and it could be used towards so many things. Whether that's even your own health and your radiant presence when you walk into a room, or when you approach somebody, they feel your energies. I really appreciate you coming on to this call and letting people know that this world exists of this exploration, that this openness and this invitation to explore. I thank you for bringing that to the podcast. I really love this conversation. We touched on so many things that aren't really commonly discussed, and people are not too keen to express them, to bring them up, to address them even. I feel this was very, very practical, very valuable for people to listen to and explore. You guys heard it here. Get in touch with Alexandra until our next episode. Thank you again for coming on.